Hello, hello. Hi, Ayakame. Super early attending. Hi, Diana. Hey, Spiros. How you doing? Hey, BL. Oh, nice. Ayakame got into the euro dollar selling down. How are you all doing? It is Friday. Hey, Carsten. How you doing? Hey, I'm blessed. All blessed. It's Friday. Hey, Kathy. Good afternoon. Doesn't feel to me. It doesn't feel like a Friday just because we had a short break in the middle of the week. So it's just a odd week. Odd week. There, Clara, you're not late. Just getting started, so you're not late. What news? We just had the GDP for the UK an hour ago, so the pound dollars stood up towards the 1.27 level. We do have some news today, but I think it's going to be interesting as we head towards the end of the at the end of the week. Ripped on gold and had a happy yen. I had a super happy yen. So overnight, I had a yen trade to the upside about 60 pips, and then euro to the downside as it reacted to that resistance about 40 pips. Left it overnight, closed it out this morning. So happy. Hey Serene, how you doing? Hey AL. Hope you're all well. I guess you're all well. I'm seeing everyone talking about good trades overnight. So I guess everyone's doing very nice. Very well. Thank you, Diana. In a couple of minutes before we get started. In the meantime, help me out. Click that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. A lot of viewers, not many clickers. Get clicking. Tonight, today is going to be interesting in terms of where we could see price move. So quite a number of things to get through. One more minute before we get going. Interesting is we're on TradingView, we're on YouTube, we're on trading.live. TradingView seems to be lagging a little bit. Thank you, Melissa. Melissa said been following me for months already. The link is there. If you've been following, you need more help, you want to find out more, join the Discord channel. Dana Paul DXY is the first one we're going to be looking at, so hang on tight. Alrighty, let's get started. So, this Friday, end of the week. We survive another week. What I'm going to do, maybe moving on to next week, I'm going to start having a table collate a table in terms of our trade ideas, what was triggered, what made money, what didn't make money, so that at least through the week or through the month, we'll see our or see my performance of the daily analysis, daily market analysis as a whole. So not just looking at the trade setups, but looking at where or how the setups have played out in general. All right, so I'll start doing that. Been thinking about it and finally thought that. If you're new to the session, do drop a message, say hi, let me know that you're watching, let me know that you're ready to go. Let me know where you're joining us from. I'd love to find out. Click that like and subscribe button. My regulars already know the deal, right? Click like and subscribe, especially on YouTube. I'm trying to bump that subscriber number up, that like number up as well. Help me out for that. And if you haven't already, do join the Discord channel. The links are there. And also for everyone currently on Discord already, in the Discord channel already, if you need further help, the one-to-one coaching session is there. So do make sure you click on the link, join for or schedule your one-to-one coaching session with me. All right. So with that, hey Desiree, how are you doing? Hey Salam Dewan and Angel Case, good morning. How are you doing? With that, let's keep going. Fundamentals we'll look at. We had the CPI data released last night. Not a super big surprise. Tell you more about that. We look at the technicals in terms of where price is. Then we look for some possible trade setups. I might be a little bit more conservative with my trade setups for today, just as we head into the weekend, and also just because of what we've seen over the last couple of days. And quick disclaimer, any information contained on this webinar should not be construed as advice and is presented as educational material only. Please do your own due diligence because the contents of this webinar is not intended to be a recommendation to trade a financial product. Your objectives, financial situation, and needs has not been considered, and you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances. Okay, so with that said, let's going on. If you do have any questions at any point in time, please feel free, put it into the chat. Let me know any particular pairs you'd like me to look at. I'll be happy to take that on board as well. Okay, going. Alrighty, now take that away. Look at that. Okay. So anytime I see the Jindown notification every morning, good to see. Good to see that you're getting notifications. Thank you for joining me. All right, so now looking at yesterday's news, we had the US CPI year-on-year being released. It was 3%. We were expecting 3.3. I even thought it could get to 3.5. We saw a small increase in inflation growth at 3.2%. Not as high as expected, but still a little bit of an uptick. Okay, core CPI stayed at 0.2, CPI month to month 0.2 as expected. So the only big surprise, or not big surprise, the only surprise was CPI year on year going from 3 to 3.2, slightly below that 3.3 forecast. Okay. Hey AYJ, how are you doing? Hi Minal, good to see you. So with that, I have $2 index. Take that away. Dollar index, what happened on the release of the news? Right, I'll zoom in so that you can see. There. Okay. So we were here during the session yesterday, and we were looking for it to trade down towards that 102 level, anticipating that it could break to the downside if we saw possibly the CPI being released at that 3.3% level. At 3.2, what we actually saw on the dollar index was it shot down. Okay, I'll show it to you on M15 as well. There we go, on M15 time frame. This was on release of the news at 8:30. It was at 102, almost 102.20. Shot straight down on release of the news to 101.78 before retracing back up and higher again. Okay, so it shot down because of that 3.2 number. Right, it shot down because of that 3.2 number. It was higher than previous, but not as high as expected. That's why we saw the dollar index climbing back up. Reason being that if it's not as high as 3.3, I was even expecting 3.5, that's going to imply that inflation growth has gone up slightly, right? Although it has gone up slightly, it's not likely to have run out of control, so to say. And that's why we saw the likelihood of the Fed Reserve not having to push the agenda of further rate hikes in September being reduced. That's why we saw that dollar index climbing back up. Okay? Typically, what we've seen is that every time the Fed Reserve talks about or has to hike rates, there is a small spike to the upside before continuing lower again. So without having to hike rates, we see the dollar index, not without having to hike rates, with less data supporting further rate hikes. That's why we saw the dollar index spike down briefly before pushing back up again. Okay, so it did not break below this 102 number. In fact, it bounced very nicely off 102 back stay within that range of 102 and 102.80, right? Stay within that range. So that was the news from yesterday. Unemployment claims, that's a weekly number, not super concerned about that, although it did come out at 248K compared to 28 previously and over the expectation of 231. Not super concerned as it's a weekly number. Moving on from that, we do have the Bank of Japan on a bank holiday in observance of Mountain Day. No idea what Mountain Day is. Did not impact the yen too much. I'll show you what I mean about that on the yen. We did have at 2 p.m., so about 1 hour ago, the pound GDP number month on month was minus 0.1. Was a minus 0.1. They expected a 0.2. It got released at a 0.5. So if you think about it, it's a relatively big swing. Because not just above forecast of 0.2, it's swung from a negative territory of minus 0.1 to 0.5. Okay, and you can see that it does tend to swing quite a bit from minus 0.3 to 2, from 2 to minus 0.1, right now at 0.5 on a month-to-month basis. Because of this news release, what we saw on the pound dollar at that release, 2 o'clock, it was at 1.2683, spiked up to 1.2720. I was highlighting on the Discord group, everyone, that there we have it, right? It's news release, big GDP release for the UK, up to the 1.2 level. However, watch for that resistance. Why I was very concerned about that for you guys is that if it does come up to this 1.27 level, I was afraid that you guys would rush into the trade, because at that round number with that lows there at 1.2720, I was thinking, or I was expecting to see price hesitate along that point. What we're seeing right now. Okay, so that's something to that's why I was saying watch out at the 1.27 level. That I don't think GDP month to month at 0.5, I don't think is going to change the overall scope of things too much. It's still going to be somewhat, the performance of the pound dollar is still going to be somewhat dependent on how the dollar index is going to perform. I do anticipate some upside on the pound dollar in the medium term, but if the dollar index continues climbing, then that's going to damper that upward move on the pound dollar. Okay, so at this point, I don't think I'm changing too much of a scope on the pound dollar now. Later on tonight at 8:30 p.m. GMT plus 8, we do have core PPI and PPI numbers to be released for the US. Again, month to month number. PPI is a producer price index. Is one factor of the CPI, going from a 0.1 to a 0.2 level of data. I don't see this as a big price mover. Right? I don't see this as a big price mover, despite it being a red news here on Forex Factory. Okay, so just be a bit cautious at 8:30. I don't think it's going to change too much, but maybe if you have a trade running, might want to get out of it or protect that trade at 8:30. Might see some fluctuations unless we see a major upset. Not going to do too much. So I think we might see some brief fluctuations, but not anything too crazy. Then preliminary University of Michigan consumer sentiment 71.6, 71.4. Again, I don't think we're going to see this do too much. What is possibly going to do more is as we head towards, or as we go into the weekend, right? Might see some levels of profit taking here. I generally can think about profit taking activities, especially after big moves on the dollar index. So I'll be watching that. Okay. All right, cool. Hey Christina, how are you doing? Mountain days or holidays to provide opportunities to get familiar with the mountains and appreciate blessings from mountains. Fantastic. Thanks for that, BL. I would love to go see Mount Fuji again. All right, so with that, as we are on Friday, I'll just give you a brief outlook into next week. Nothing much on Monday. Tuesday, we do have monetary policy meeting minutes. Might pay attention to that. More importantly, on Tuesday next week, we do have PPI data to be released for the Canadians' retail sales numbers for the US. The main feature next week will be the RBNZ, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, with the cash rate. I'll tell you more about that next week as price develops. FOMC meeting minutes, unemployment rate for the Aussie, and then a nice Friday again. Okay, so with that, we do have some news next week, but let's focus on today. What's coming up? Some news items, but I don't think it's going to move prices too much. So could look like trending scenarios with a brief retrace towards the end of the session. With that, let's look at the charts. Hey KR Signals, good morning. How are you doing? So now looking at the dollar, that trend line is definitely broken. That is out of the picture. Fibonacci is out of the picture as well, so we can take that away. This point, it'd be worth doing that. Put those away. Now looking at this on the away. this up here. Okay. So now looking at the dollar index on H1 time frame, where do we think this is going? A bit choppy right now. We have that trend line. We do have it trending strongly to the upside. You can see that even this long extended trend line works. Okay, so what I'm looking at is this resistance level is holding very strong. 102.80 holding strong. It's been consolidating along between 102.50 and 102.65, and consolidating. Looks like we might see a brief retrace before a push higher again. Okay, why I say a brief retrace before a push higher is because it's been it's been consolidating. The previous move was a rejection of 102. Okay, so what I'm looking at here is possibly at 23.6 level holding. Right, if 23.6 holds right there, we can see a little bit of a price action here, rejecting that 102.50 level. As much as see this doing too much. Okay, why I don't see this doing too much? I don't see a reason for it to break, for the dollar index to break above this resistance. It's held at this level on the 3rd of August, held this level on the 8th of August, came close, and it hasn't broken that point. So as much as I thought, I was thinking that it could see some upside, it will hold at this resistance. Most likely will hold at this. Maybe what we'll end up seeing is a bit, if it looks like it's going to break, I would be looking for this. Come down to about 50, test this level, come back up. Might not happen, might not develop the full move today, right? But overall, I see the dollar index testing this 102.80 level again. Right in the middle there. Yep. So what we'll say here is today is the 11th of August. Dollar index, looking for it to complete retracement, possibly down to that 102.30 to 102.25 level. Then test 102.80. Okay, I think that's going to be my view, or in terms of my bias for the dollar index. Come down, test this level, and bounce back up. If it does break below this trend line, then we do have a couple of levels before that. At 102. But I think looking at this, I expect trend line to hold. Good morning, Matic. I'm good. How are you? So let's those 10 break below 23.6, could come down towards this 50% level. Looking for it to bounce off this point, possibly back towards that level again. Okay, I'm happy with that. Alrighty. Happy with that? That said, then looking at the key dollar. So we were looking for that possible dollar weakness to break down, did not happen. So we'll take that away. That did not break above that trend line to retest that resistance. So you can see here now that the previous high and that trend line that we've seen since, well, since way back, since the 14th of July, still applying that downward pressure on Kiwi dollar together with that 23.6 retracement level. Take all of that away. It's hit the level, turned back down, and this trend line still continues. So right now, what's interesting is it came down to that 0.6 level, and it shows a little bit of a bounce. Right, and if I show you an H4 time frame, you can see that below 0.6, 0.55, 0.59, the next levels down are in October. So quite far away. I would say that I would like to see some retest. Right, as we see possible downward push on the dollar index, I would look for the Kiwi dollar to test higher or to retrace. Looking at this, you have this point 6 way back. In fact, I'll do it more relevant. Current low. Hey Ahmed, how are you doing? Good to see you. I see a lot of old names reappearing, so very good to see you guys. Right, Discord channel link is there again for all those who have just joined. What I'm looking at here is it sounds a little bit optimistic. That's why I'm hesitating right now, because this resistance level there, in fact, we can revise that. Take that away for now, because I had it in the middle there. Had it in the middle there, and I don't like that level just because it's right in the middle. So I'm going to take that away. Okay, and I have this 23.6 there. What I would like to would be a retrace on the dollar, possibly back towards this point, then turn back down again. Okay, the only hesitation right now is I'm not sure whether it would go from 6022 to 6062, a good 40 pip move. Whether this move down is going to translate to a 40 pip move to the upside. I think that would, if it doesn't, then it's a missed setup, but that's fine. Okay, so I would say looking at it to retest and reject this trend line, I would be looking for a short position 6055, take profit 50 pips, stop loss relatively tight, no more than 20 pips. I like that. Okay, cool. Happy with that. It's going to be a long move to the downside. Yeah, I do still think that we could see downside on the Kiwi dollar. I'm looking for a retrace first. So we're looking to sell 0.5, stop loss 20, take profit 50. That's if we see a retrace, turn back down. Could we do this? Let me do 20. That's only. I don't think it's worth. All right, I would say have we'll look at two possible setups. One is a big retrace, right? A big retrace before turning back down. Alternatively, if it just sits around this area and doesn't do too much, then I'll look for it to break below 0.6 to the downside of that support. Bottom of the support is there. Next level down is this point that works. Very big downside potential on the Kiwi dollar. 5850. 5850. So if we're looking at this, then okay, this one we're looking for it to retrace for turning back down, but if it doesn't, then I could also be looking for a selling opportunity down 5970, stop loss 25 pips, take profit, could be a good 100 pips to the downside. I don't think this is going to happen. This whole move is going to happen today. This could be something that will hold on for a bit longer. I think that this will be for more likely for today. So I'll take that away. There'll possibly be a next week trade. That's it then on the Aussie dollar. All right, Aussie dollar again did not trigger our trade. Take that one away. That inverted head and shoulder did not happen as well. Okay. However, what I'm looking at here is now this not really inverted head and shoulder, finding a bit of a support here. I would, so like if I look at this Kiwi, right, there might be questions of why don't I look to buy this up. I wouldn't be super happy to buy this because it's been a long time since we saw the Kiwi bounce from this point. However, if I look at the Aussie, what I would be more tempted to do would be to buy the Aussie back up. Right? If I had to, then maybe I'll be looking to buy the Aussie back up. That based on this, 3 is there. Hi Ismet, how are you doing? Could be looking at 0.6540. Stop loss 30 pips. Take profit 56 pips. 5 pips. Upside. I wouldn't move this nearer just because I want it to break above one level first. Stop loss could go a little bit tighter, 25 to 30 pips, not going to make a huge difference. I'll keep it at 30 there. Okay, so this is a bit of a counter trend of range bound trade. So look at buying at, so it's in that range. I'm looking at 6540, stop loss 30, take profit 55. Ahmed is scalping through that range with a long bias. Yeah, I do want to see that Aussie strength. I do, in the general scheme of things, that we might see the Aussie push up, but I think it's a little bit early, so it's going to stay within that range. Only time I'm going to gain real, somewhat of a confidence for the Aussie to the upside will be if it breaks above this resistance level. Okay, good. Then next up, on to the yen. Right, so yen, actually, if you looked at it on the news release, it did retrace down. Right, retrace down to where we said it was likely to come down to before bouncing back up. So if you were able I can tell you I wasn't able to do that, right? Because I was waiting for confirmation. If you just had an order there right at the candle 143.30 and bought it up, you would have done very well. Okay, let me know if you did get into this trade at 143.30. It worked out pretty much as planned. Came down, test, and bounced back up. But that was a bit fortunate. To be fair and honest, that was a little bit fortunate. What I did get into was the US yen to the upside as it broke above that high, right? 144.20, that point, right? We did get into that to the upside. Or sharing this as it happened. I was sharing it as it happened, so it was at 144.27. We're saying, US yen waiting for it to close. Then when it closed, so 144.27, I did get into that trade and then it went up. I got out of that trade this morning, right? I got out of that trade this morning at 144.78 because I was expecting the dollar index to retrace a little bit from here. It did not retrace, it consolidated, but it was still a relatively good move because at 144.78, right? If I didn't get out at that point, then we'll still be seeing some downside. So I'm very glad I did get out about that. What about there? Right, so I'm happy with the US yen. I think Ayakami did the US yen as well. Let me know how you went on that. Now looking at this move, patient up, that away, and this level continue. Don't this 23.6, but it's going to be supported by a trend line. I see that. What I would like to see here will be a retrace to test that trend line and then a bounce back up again, breaking above that level of 145. But okay, so I think that there, but at 145, if you guys were watching the session I did for the brokerage, I shared it into the Discord channel as well. At that 145 level, we're heading into intervention zone. Right? Not saying that it's going to happen. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen, but there is the risk at 145 that the Bank of Japan is going to talk about intervention, talk about not doing interventions, talk about the need or the need not to do interventions. Any mention of an intervention or a tweak to the YC or comments about the current policy rates and inflation levels is going to cause some speculation that the Bank of Japan is going to intervene, and then we could see some push to the downside here on the US yen. Very similar to what we saw over the last couple of times at this level. Okay, so I'll show you 145 again. Over the last couple of times, we saw that big push to the downside on the US yen, right? Even as it came close to 145, tested once or twice before having a big spike, tested again, small downward, and then finally broke through. So that's something to pay attention to at a 145 level. We do have the next little bit of an area there at 146.50. Okay, so back to the H1 time frame. I'm having a lot of fun with the US yen. I typically love trading the US yen, so I do get a little bit more excited. Yen gets into a nice trending scenario. What I'll be looking for here on the yen is if it does break up, bounce and break to the upside, I would still be looking for a buying opportunity. 145.20. Stop loss very tight at 30 pips. That's not 30, that's 31. And then a take profit of a good 121 pips to the upside. Okay, again, I don't think this is gonna likely to happen today. If you even hit 100 or 90 pips to the upside, that'd be fantastic already. Just looking at this retracement, I think it might retrace a little bit lower. That buys this picture. Yeah, that way. I think what could I just look at this point here and I might see a spike out, a quick push back up again. Right, but once we get into this area here, I'm going to keep my trades very short term. Once it moves up, I'll protect it with a break even level. Might secure some profits. I'm just ready at this point for any big spikes to the downside. Okay, so 145.20, take profit 120, stop loss 30. 145.20, stop loss 30, take profit 120. All good. Anyone super keen on the yen? If you're super keen on the yen, put it into the chat. Let me know that this is something that you are watching closely at. Hey Lydia, how are you doing? Is yen something that you're super keen on? Put in the chat. Let me. This appears yen appears to decouple from the dollar index. Not yet. Not really decoupling yet. It is pushing a little bit to the downside. Dollar index is also pushing a little bit to the downside. So not exactly decoupled yet. And actually, I don't like it to decouple. I would actually prefer it to be perfectly correlated to the dollar index. It makes it so much easier. I'll just look at the dollar index strengthening, pushing the yen to the upside. Maybe a lot. 10-year U tested higher in the tweak. It did briefly. It did decouple from the expectations that the tweak would have strengthened the yen. Instead, dollar index has been pushing it higher. So that's why I see this as possibly continuing to the upside slightly more. Right? But there is a risk for intervention rising. Green likes, yes, yen looks toppish. Yeah, I think by soon we will be having some difficulty along this range, looking for that downside. There's really started to observe yen more in recent times, focus on SGD JPY. Okay, I don't do SGD JPY, but that's another way to do that. If beyond short-term trading on FX, you can do it across other methods. China says not my cup of tea. Sure. I love yen has been one of the best ones that forming for over the many years of. So right, enough of reminiscing about the yen. Looking back at the pound dollar, did not happen. Take that away. Take all that away. I mean, I will. Oh, actually, let's do Aussie yen. So there's a question about Aussie yen. So we looked at the Aussie dollar, possibly bouncing to the upside. US yen possibly retracing before pushing higher. So looking at the Aussie yen, it is sitting in that consolidation, right? It is in a bit of a consolidation. At this point, this trend line does not work. Take that away. Previous ones. Now let's look at this. Well within that range of 94 and 95. This holding, consolidating at this level. That trend line doesn't really make sense. Dip levels at that 23.6 point. We'll have a bit at 38.2. Okay, 26. Okay, what I think is gonna happen on the Aussie yen, because we are expecting yen, some downside on yen. Aussie dollar could see some upside, but it looks like it's consolidating there. I think that the Aussie yen does run a risk of consolidating and some break to the downside towards that resistance turn support level of 94. Okay, so I think it will come down towards the support level of 94 before possibly bouncing back up again. But I think this move will be a bit later on, maybe. All right. Yeah, I mean, not all strategies work with all pairs, so I agree with you. Trade what works with your strategy. Okay. Right. So now looking, I hope I answered your question there, Ahmed, about the Aussie yen. Then with that, now we look at the pound dollar. You're most welcome. It did spike up. Right, it spiked up, tested that 1.2720 level before retracing back down. Do have a little bit of a level here supporting this. So now I'm looking for it to bounce. I think that we could still see some push to the upside on the pound dollar, but we might see that being driven by some move on the dollar index. So that comes down, pushes back up. Pound dollar is going to stay there. Okay, what I want to see here is if we see the pound dollar break above 1.2730, right? We could see a good 50 pips upside. Stop loss will be right in the middle there, about 25. Right? Why I'm anticipating some move to the upside on the pound dollar is really driven by that good GDP number that we've seen. The dollar index possibly weakening, that's going to drive pound dollar higher. Okay, so 1.2730, stop loss 25, take profit 55 and 50. One is it. There we go. So pound dollar buy 1.2730, stop loss 25, take profit 50. 730, stop loss 25, take profit 50. To the upside, I see this as driven by the GDP number that was just, and some weakness in the dollar index. Right, if it does push down, then you could look to buy it off from this trend line, or just wait for it to bounce back up and then that setup. With that, then onto the euro dollar. Did very well on this last night as well. Moved almost to the T. Was looking for it to push up. Right, we were at this point yesterday. I was looking for it to come up, test that resistance level, and reject to the downside. It did that exactly. It went up, tested, on release of the news, and then push back down again. Got in at about 1.1035. I think I got in a little bit later. So about 30, I think. Maybe about 30. Then again, same thing, got out this morning as it was at about that point, 9 o'clock, about there. Right, I thought it was going to retrace further to the upside. So again, anyone got onto the euro dollar, do let me know. I want to find out. Love to know. Euro dollar testing that resistance. Take this, that's still stays, that's fine. 50% retracement level still stays. Holding. Still holding very strong here at 1.1050. Do have this supporting that move to the upside, but I'll tell you what, I know that we're all hoping to get onto a trade on the euro dollar. It is, however, right in that middle of that support resistance level. Right, it's right in the middle there. Not super keen, especially with that level here at 1.10, a nice roundish number resistance. So I think that what we could in fact looking for is slightly contrarian view is that if it tests and turns back down, right, then I'll be looking to sell down. So this is again a different view, right? Here we're expecting the dollar to weaken and push back up. I'm looking at this as maybe it just weakens a little bit before pushing down again, for that dollar strength to come back into play, breaking below that trend line. So what you could be looking for here, 1.0990, stop loss tight at about no more than 20 pips. Right, and if it breaks down from there, you could see a good 40, 50 pips to the downside. Could even go down to 60, 70 pips, and then look as the interim levels to close out. Okay, but I think let's look for that one first. So 20 pips to 5 pips to the downside on the euro dollar. Makes sense so far? If it makes sense, put it into the chat, let me know. I just want to make sure that you guys are all still on track. Haven't lost anyone. 1.09. So at 1.0990. Stop loss 20. Take profit 5. Put it into the chat, let me know if it makes sense to you. If it's all good, let me know. Okay. Thank you, Bia. Thank you, Ahmed. How about everyone else? In. Then, as we look at the pound, because we have Lydia online, as we look at the pound dollar and the US yen, then we look at the pound yen. Thank you, Ayakami. Looking at the pound yen, pound dollar, we're anticipating a push to the upside. US dollar, US yen, a slight retracement before possible push. So pound yen finding that resistance along 184. I'm anticipating in this case, if you see it, a double top scenario. So with that double top scenario, we might see some deeper retracement back down, right? And you see that if it does, even if it does retrace, wouldn't break below that new low or that previous low before finding that trend line. So I think that the pound yen is likely to come down to about that 183.50 level. before possibly pushing back up again. I don't think this double top will form up nicely. So I think that it could bounce back up above 1.4, right? It all depends on what the pound dollar is going to do. So if pound dollar pushes up, could see this break 184. Above 184, we don't have much levels. We don't have much levels above 184, so just be super careful there. That's also why we're seeing some double top action forming. Retraces, push back up. So 184, I would say once you don't have big levels to target, then you could be looking to buy. Even if you were looking to buy 184.20, and I'll go based on my risk to reward, right? I'll have a 30 pip stop loss. I would have a 60 pip take profit. I just want to trade it up, close it out, and then see what happens. Trade it up, close it out, and see what happens again. This is purely based on the risk reward ratios. Okay, so we look for that bounce back up. Then onto the euro yen, again forming a good consolidation at this point. Then trend line has been a long time. That's more recent trend line. That consolidation, euro dollar looking like it. We're looking for that downside push. US yen coming down a little bit before possibly doing that. I'm looking for a breakout to the downside on the US, on the euro yen, possibly 158.75. Stop loss 50 pips, take profit, maybe back down towards this point, at about a breakout towards that trend line, about 80. So that's what I'll be looking for on the euro yen. Then back to the US Swiss franc. Look at that. Again, came down, tested support at 0.87, bounced straight back up, right? So it's done exactly as we planned, not something that I trade. So again, that's done. At this point right now, I would still say that that trend line is still valid there. Again, we could see this. Look, it's been forming a bit of that interim just below that resistance level of 0.88. It's been forming some resistance at 0.8775. Struggled to break over the last couple of weeks, since last week. Looking at this, might turn down for pushing back up. Right, very similar pattern to what we're expecting to see here on dollar index. Right, what I wouldn't be looking to do that trade. I would be more interested to see if China, yeah, I will do US CAD right after this. I would actually be more interested to look for a reaction along this resistance. So 8790, 20 pips stop loss to come down to 60 pips, 40 pips to 60 pips to the downside. Right, I still look for it to trade within this range. So I'll be looking for rejection of that resistance. So I'm looking to sell 8790, stop loss 20, take profits. So 0.8790, stop loss 20, profit 6. Looking for that rejection of the resistance. It did very nicely to bounce off our support here. Now we're waiting for that to bounce back. Ben on US CAD, right? Did not break our support from yesterday. It bounced right off support at this point right now, 1.3340. Again, looking like a little bit of a consolidation. Dollar index seems like it doesn't want to trade down. It looks like it might just push towards this point. Okay, which is okay as well because we're still looking for it to test that resistance level. I would still be looking. Take there. I look for reaction along that resistance of 1.3460 to sell back down. Yep. Okay. I want to see this happen. Okay, a test and reject back down. I don't think it'll go all the way. I would like to see it come back down to about this point, just so that you might see it might get more interesting as we see that inverted head and shoulder form before it bounces back up again. So if you're looking to get into a trade on the US CAD, could be looking for 1.3450. Stop loss about 20 pips. Take profit down to this point about 40 pips. You could look at it all the way down to 70, but I would say that with not many news for today, maybe about 40 pips would be reasonable. Then it was set up quite nicely as well for next week. If it does break to the upside, I will be very cautious just because we're in a very high level and we saw a very big rejection earlier in the week. Okay, so I'm looking for a test and a reject. 1.3450, stop loss 20, profit 40. So 1.3450, stop loss 20, profit 40. Not super exciting on the US CAD, I feel. Then lucky last, looking at gold, right? Same thing. We were, look at that, we were looking for it to go to, where do this? We're looking for gold to climb up to 1930, possible rejection at resistance. What did it do? Went up to 1930, rejected that resistance and turned back down. Right? So that worked out perfectly. You're most welcome there, Diana. That worked out perfectly. Now, with that done, I would say that 1917, looking for it to bounce back up significantly would mean a lot of downside on the dollar index, which I don't think is going to happen. See this. So I actually think that we might on gold see it retrace slightly before pushing back down. Overall, still consolidating along 1913. Right? It comes up to 1920, back down. So I would say that gold is likely to retrace higher slightly, but overall consolidate along 13. All right, I'll consolidate along 9. Good. Now that done, then looking at the Aussie Kiwi for Ahmed. Here, pushing to the upside. That was, based on the previous webinar that I did with the brokerage, we were looking at the Aussie Kiwi in this fashion, right? So we're looking at it bouncing the two extreme resistance and the two extreme supports, and then we bigger time frame trades We were looking to sell down from that resistance, or ultimately from that resistance of almost 1.16, or looking to buy it up from support levels. Okay, this is a daily time frame kind of view. Right, so in the middle level is at 1.08. Right, that's in the point where that's a median level. Back to the H1 time frame, how I see the Aussie Kiwi is that anticipating Kiwi dollar to push to the downside, Aussie dollar to maybe consolidate or push slightly higher. Then the Aussie Kiwi, we could see it consolidate here. I would like to see it go up a little bit higher. I think that the Aussie Kiwi does have a chance to, currently at 108.53, with the current trend, expecting some upside on the Aussie, some downside on the Kiwi. Could see this climbing towards, firstly towards 108.90. So how I look at this is, could be looking to buy it up 108.5, take profit 50, stop loss just below that consolidation, no more than 20 pips. I'll be looking for that upward push on the Aussie Kiwi. All right, hope I answered your question there, Ahmed. Good questions, everyone. Any further questions? No worries. And if you got no further questions, the link is there again. Do make sure you join the Discord channel. And if not, I will see you on the Discord channel. If not, I'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Have a good weekend. Please trade well, trade safe. Bye-bye now.